Hi everyone, good afternoon or good morning. This is Marin Hirsch here, the Sales Manager at NetElixir. We thank you for joining us today for our webinar. We're going to be discussing Semantic Search, the new king of search marketing. So to give you a brief background about NetElixir, we offer search marketing services and technology to retailers like Lenovo, Oneida, and K-Swiss. We do have our headquarters here in Princeton, New Jersey, but also have global offices in London and Hyderabad, India. Our team consists at NetElixir of 70+ members, from search marketing engineers to data scientists, technologists, global operations managers. We're all working together, ideating, innovating, and implementing unique practices to go towards our goal and vision of empowering global search advertisers. We invite you to follow us on Twitter at NetElixir, and feel free to check out our website, netelixir.com. So, just a brief background about NetElixir University. We were launched in 2012 with a vision of democratizing the digital marketing industry through exceptional knowledge and expertise sharing. And our goal is to share best practices in retail and digital marketing with 10,000 businesses worldwide by 2015. And we invite you to join our LinkedIn group, NetElixir University. So today our speaker is going to be Shawn Swaim. He is our SEO manager here at NetElixir, and he was featured in Philly Business Journal as well as Yahoo News, and he has 10 years of web development and SEO experience. If you'd like to connect with him on LinkedIn, here is his profile so you can contact him directly. So the table of contents of what we're going to be covering today during our webinar. First, we're going to be discussing what is semantic search, how do we arrive at semantic search, what can you do to win with semantic search, and then Shawn's going to be taking you through a live audit, and we're going to be covering for the last 5 minutes questions that our audience has. Feel free to type them in the chat bar, and we'll go ahead and field as many questions as we can to Shawn, and we'll cover the rest and contact you directly after the webinar if we can't answer them live today. So I'm going to pass it over to Shawn now. Shawn, we're so excited to hear about semantic search.
All right, thank you very much, Marin. It's my pleasure to get started here. So really what you want to do is you want to take a step back and think to yourself, what is semantic search? And to answer that question, you really want to start to think about what Google's intent is as a search engine. So for a long time, it has always been understanding user intent and displaying results. But now, Google is really trying to understand user intent and display answers. So we take a little history trip here. Google's search results page used to be very basic. Compared to today, it's very different. So you would type in a search query and you would get a list of websites as your result. Today, when you do a search on Google, the results are very dynamic. You get pictures, videos, ratings, all kinds of data that they really kind of aggregate from multiple sources and present to the end user. We're going to actually come back and talk about this and how it looks in a little bit here. This is another example just to show how dynamic Google is becoming. It's not just that example. It's also if you were to search for a restaurant, you also get a different look of results as well. So how did we arrive at semantic search? What we're going to go over here over the next few slides is we're going to look at a couple of the updates that Google has released over the past couple of years so that we can really get an understanding of kind of a timeline of how Google is progressing towards what is known as semantic search. So the first update that we want to cover here is Google Panda. Google Panda was first rolled out in 2011. And really what it targeted was websites that were considered to be thin or low quality level of content. It really went after a lot of sites that were considered content farms. the content farms were really just websites that published content for the sake of publishing content. One example that Matt Cutts, the head of web spam at Google, actually gave recently at a conference was a website that published an article about, it was about an 800-word article about how to pour a glass of milk. Now, obviously, that's not very constructive content to be on the web, and websites like that got punished accordingly. Next is Google Penguin that we're going to talk about here. So Google Penguin was first released in April of 2012. It targeted a lot of websites that violated Google's quality guidelines. One major thing that it went after was low-quality backlinks. So a couple of the varieties of backlinks that these went after were general web directories and article directories, meaning that if it was just a website and you went to this website, you plugged in your URL, and it gave you a backlink. No vetting process, no nothing, just you got a link on their website, no questions asked. Same thing with these article directories that they went after. You could write a 300-word article that's just 3 paragraphs and submit it. Again, auto-approval, no vetting, just publish an article. And that will get you a backlink to your website. Google essentially said, no, this isn't going to work anymore. You have to start publishing some quality content here. So looking at those, and now we're going to move into Google Venice, the Google Venice update. Now, Google Venice was a little bit under the radar in the SEO community, but it changed local rankings. And to me, it was a signal that Google is a whole lot more intuitive than we initially thought. It was really a signal that they're looking at more data than just keywords on a page. So I'm going to show this example here, and it'll really give a sense of the type of update that it was. So sitting in my office in Princeton, I searched for toy store. Now the first 2 results you would expect, they are major companies, they have a lot of SEO work done to them. But result number 3 is a local business. Okay, this is a toy store that is just a few blocks over from our office here at NetElixir, and the reason that it's displaying that is because of the location of our IP address in our office. So Google knows that if we're looking for just toy store, a national term, sitting here in Princeton, that it's going to display information relevant to that search. Even though we didn't search for toy store in Princeton, we got a result for a toy store in Princeton. The next update or change that Google made is the knowledge graph. You've probably seen it. It was a major update in my eyes because it really showed how intuitive Google can be. So the box that's over to the right in your search results is the knowledge graph. So I searched the term House of Flies. It's currently a television show. It's also a book, and it could also just be a phrase. Very unlikely, but it could be a phrase. And I searched for House of Lies, and this is probably a week before the latest season debuted, and it started to display information to me based on episodes, actors and actresses that are on that show, a description of that show. It's giving me information about reviews, and this information is all pulled from multiple sources. It's got information from Wikipedia, it's got information from Google+, and it has information from IMDb. So Google's intent here is to really start displaying information to answer questions to their end user. And then along came Hummingbird. Now, Hummingbird left a lot of people very confused because it wasn't like their standard updates that we've seen from them in the past. So it wasn't something like Panda or Penguin where they made a change to the rules of their algorithm and you reacted to it. It was really that, excuse me, it was really that they completely swapped out their algorithm. They swapped algorithm A with algorithm B, so to speak, and they said that the purpose of this algorithm change was to really start to address user intent. It's to really start to look at the way people are searching, not on really necessarily a keyword base, but on what the intent of their search is, and display those results accordingly. So what can we do to win at semantic search? Now, obviously, that is a bit of a loaded question. These are just some suggestions that you can use to start your quest in winning at semantic search. There are obviously many other factors that come into it, but these here are going to be a nice base for you to start off of and build from. So rule number one, thing number one to do is to think of your end user. Some example questions that you can ask. Are your visitors coming to your website from a mobile device? If they are, is your website displaying properly on a mobile device? If your users are multilingual and coming from different areas of the world, is the content available that way? And another thing that you also want to take into consideration, and this is has been a part of SEO for a while now, your page load time. Is your page loading quickly? There's a lot of trends going on in the web design world for full size, full screen images, but they're slowing down on load time. Load time is a ranking factor, and Google's purpose is to display information to the end user as quickly as possible. If you think about the House of Lies example, it displays a lot of information in a very quick, unique way. So if you take that into consideration, how fast they want to get information to their end user, think of how Google might look at your website if they know your website takes 7, 8, 9 seconds to load the home page alone. Just food for thought there. The next thing that you're going to want to do is become and stay socially active. This doesn't just limit you to Facebook and Twitter. This also includes your blog. You're going to want to not forget about Google Plus and YouTube. And also remember that social signals are becoming a stronger ranking factor in Google. So thinking again about the House of Lies example, there was information pulled from multiple sources, one of them being Google Plus. So if somebody searches for your brand and your brand is big enough to be displayed in the knowledge graph, it's going to pull the information from your Google Plus page and display it. You have to start answering questions that your end user has and get that information displayed so that Google can in turn display that information. Consider a content refresh. Now, we all know, anyone that has been doing SEO for a while, we know that freshness is important for SEO. And really what you want to start to consider here is to talk about your industry in different ways. So going back to the toy store example, SEO practices of old, you may have said, I want to rank as a toy store in Princeton. So you're going to say toy store in Princeton in your content 3 times. Obviously, this is just an example. But you're going to start thinking about it in a smarter way. Think about your industry in multiple ways and think about how powerful your content would be if you didn't just focus on making sure you said toy store in Princeton 3 times in your content, but if you started thinking around toy store in Princeton and you start mentioning words like play, fun, you can start mentioning brands of toys, you can really start to start answering your end user, the searcher's questions by thinking of your content on that level, and you'll just display better results and get a better response from your website. A little caveat here, of course, make sure your content is always original. Do not ever copy content from another website. That obviously goes without saying. And a resource that you can use to monitor your content is the NetElixir Marketplace web page tool analysis. We're going to go into that a little bit more specifically in the live analysis. And then another point here that you can do is to use and introduce structured data into your website. So you can present vital information to Google that includes reviews, your address, product information, there's copyright information, patent information that can be presented. If it's software, if it's a physical product. Schema.org has a ton of resources and ton of available options that you can implement that Google will recognize. And you can implement this information pretty easily and then test it using Google's Webmaster Tools Rich Snippets testing tool. Again, you want to make sure that you don't overdo it. You do not want to introduce structured data for the sake of introducing structured data. That's just not good practice. Only include the things that are necessary and important for your brand and for your business. So taking a moment of self-reflection here, think about what Google has done over the past few years, and think about what they're trying to deliver to their end user, and that's what's going to help you win at Semantic Search. So ask yourself, am I just doing this for the sake of X? So am I submitting to this directory for the sake of the link? Think about it. If somebody were to see what you were doing, does it serve them any benefit? And also take into consideration that Google and the end user, more importantly, the move is going away from keyword-centered search. So again, the toy store example, I wasn't searching for a toy store in Princeton. I happened to be in Princeton and I was looking for a toy store. And Google displayed the results to me because the website of the local result was that strong and it displayed the right signals to Google to give me that result. That's essentially what Semantic Search is. It's using all the elements of your website and thinking about all of the updates that we know Google is doing, and it's capitalizing on that to present that information and make sure that our information is displayed on Google. So if you're interested, I'm offering now for a complimentary semantic search analysis. The 5 points that will be included in this analysis may not necessarily be what we reviewed today. It's just going to be 5 points determined by me about, if it is a, depending on what your industry is. If you're interested, you can email me at Shawn@NetElixir.com. All right, so we are going to open it up for questions now. And if you think, if some other questions have come up that, that you didn't think of in time, you can feel free to email me at Shawn@NetElixir.com.
Okay, thank you, Shawn. So I'm going to field the questions to you. If anyone, like I said, has any questions, feel free to type them in now. And, okay, the first question we're going to start with is, do the semantic search best practices differ for retail versus non-retail websites?
The rules are a little bit different. It's basically one thing that you can do to make sure that your local website is ready for semantic search is that you can introduce structured data. So the example that we gave with the Princeton toy store was they introduced their address. So they displayed the information to Google where they were located. So Google was able to give me results based on where their address is.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, another question I have here. Does Google, quote unquote, penalize those who do not have a Google Plus presence?
It's not necessarily that they are going to penalize you if you don't have a Google Plus. I can't imagine that there would be a penalty as a result of that, but you're certainly not helping yourself at all. Again, Google is displaying information from Google Plus in their search results, so you definitely would want to take advantage of that being there.
Okay. One question I'm seeing multiple times, so I'm going to definitely, I know you mentioned, you touched on it again with your first question, but can you explain more about what structured data is? A couple people seem to have a question about that.
Sure, absolutely. Structured data, if I can explain it this way, anybody that's ever coded a website can tell you that there are hundreds of ways that you can code a website and get it to display properly on the web. Okay, there's just hundreds of variants that you can use. Structured data is essentially standardized code. So it's essentially taking the guesswork out of what you mean in your code, and it essentially outlines to Google, this is my address, or this is the name of my product, or this is 5 out of whatever stars.
Okay. All right. I think we probably have time for one more question, and certainly those that we don't get to, we'll follow up with you personally afterwards. How beneficial is maintaining a sitemap on a retail site for SEO?
Sitemaps are very important. Just because, the frequency of how often you should update your sitemap obviously depends on your website, but that in conjunction with Google Webmaster Tools really is a great way to signal to Google for the pages that should be crawled on your website. So it's just outlining to Google what pages should be crawled.
Okay, thank you so much. And for all the other questions that we didn't get to, we'll certainly follow up with you. Thank you for all the questions, and we really do appreciate your time today. If you would like to request more information about NetElixir search marketing services and technology, you can feel free to contact me, Marin, at NetElixir.com. Also, stay tuned for our upcoming webinar in February. We're going to be discussing proven strategies for running a successful product listing ad campaign, and we invite you to spread the love about today's webinar and tweet hashtag NetElixirU. So, thank you for your time. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next month. Take care.